Coming up, we're hanging at the student union, heading to the quad to try some ultimate frisbee, then stopping by the dining hall for some all-you-can-eat chicken patties, because up for debate tonight, we're going back to college. This is Up for Debate, episode number 114, recorded May 31st, 2018. Back to school. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Up for Debate, the debate podcast where the two hosts agree on everything. I'm Sean Jennings, joined as always by our Dean of Admissions, Mr. Matt Mariani. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Mr. Sean. Congratulations on making the Dean's list of podcasting.
No one is buying it. No one. Am I on the Dean's bad list?
You're on the naughty list, which means that you will receive a lump of textbook debt.
Oh, no. They're so expensive, but no one reads them.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's what you get for sleeping through all your classes and waking up late playing Pokemon Snap. That's what all the college kids are playing these days, Pokemon Snap.
People are so confused at what time frame we are talking about.
Wow.
It amazed me what I saw people doing in class. And there was a class I took where there was a kid, I kid you not, who for the entire hour, whatever, of the class would sit and watch Hulu with full headphones on. Full screen Hulu. Never had another window open. Never clicked on it. With full headphones watching it. Why'd you even show up at that point?
That's exactly the point. I mean, that at that point, it's like you're just taking advantage of the professor's very liberal, lax attendance policy.
But at the same time, that was a class I took where at the end of the year, the professor told me that he didn't remember most of the semester because he was high on painkillers. So, a lot of people were doing crazy shit in that class.
It was the 70s.
Barely there.
Wait. Oh, it wasn't.
No.
It was the 2010s.
That's right. Now, Matt, I'm very excited about this topic. I'm assuming most folks out there listening know this. Maybe they don't. College is how you and I know each other. We went to college together.
That's right. I was Sean's RA his freshman year.
No, you weren't. You weren't cool enough to be my RA.
Sean did a lot of very bad things, and I had to frequently reprimand him for bullying the other hallmates.
No, Matt, you were the one who was in a gang freshman year. What were you guys called?
I remember very specifically the time that Sean burnt down his entire freshman dorm, making mac and cheese in the microwave.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that sounds like something.
And that cost him 10 points from Gryffindor.
People are just very confused.
There was also the time that Sean thought it'd be a great idea, instead of going to class, he would build a fortress out of pillows and desks to block my room, the RA room. Which I did not take too kindly to, being the RA of the building.
You're just listing things you did in college. So, take credit, man. Take credit. You've earned it.
Credit where credit is due.
That is right.
That's all me.
So, of course,
I'm just plugging in my computer. It's warning me with the low battery.
That's bad. No, you go ahead and do that. Now, Matt, we shared a dorm freshman year. We shared a apartment-style housing our sophomore year. We were friends outside of that. And so I think, I don't know if we had the most traditional college experience, but we certainly had a college experience. And we can certainly speak to that. College, of course, a thing a lot of people are doing these days. All the cool kids are going to college, Matt.
All the cool kids, all the poor kids, all the rich kids, the rich kids that then become poor kids because they went to college.
Now, Matt, you spend all day around high school kids and not in a creepy way.
Sure do.
And so they must be thinking a lot about going to college. You must hear a lot of that.
Oh, yeah. I do. I do hear a fair amount, especially around this time. Now is kind of the time that it's getting real for them, that they're starting to kind of look at the time they've spent in high school and looking at it with nostalgic eyes. By the way, I read a really interesting article about how high school seniors kind of undergo behavioralists have looked at this phenomenon. They undergo kind of they're calling it a sociological regression. Basically, what that means is that they are at senior year,
Mm-hmm.
and as the year goes on, they start acting more immature in their behavior and actions, for better or for worse. Like, this isn't all negative, but they start acting less mature and kind of regressing to the way they were in elementary school. And the article postulates that we spend from sixth grade all the way up to 11th grade, we start this arc where we like mature as we should every year. And then like once 11th grade is done, once they reach like a plateau, probably the first semester of senior year, and then you have this part where the plateau arcs downward and starts to kind of motion a little bit down. They're starting to call this the retro. It's like, yeah, it's senioritis is what it is, but they're calling it like a retrograde youth or something like that. Retrograde youth movement. And then presumably we start climbing back up in college. That doesn't actually happen. Shit gets real. But yeah, I would argue probably that we go down and then we hit another plateau, and that plateau kind of lasts all through college. And then when you're out on the real world, you know, your life is basically over.
Sure.
But
Okay.
But I found it really interesting. Like they had evidence where seniors, you know, wear ironic T-shirts and comical shirts, or they'll just wear pajamas to school. Like, a lot of people thought that was like them saying like, screw it, like I give up. But now they're finding it's more that they're retracting into this comfortable
I get that
sense of youth and childhood. And they think it's a defense mechanism because they're not prepared for the real world. They're, you know, afraid to go out into the real world. So they're kind of like, you know, grabbing their childhood with both hands and vigorously clutching it. I thought it was an interesting article. Do you think you can speak to that, Sean? Was that Sean Jennings' senior year of high school?
Oh, absolutely. But I will say it wasn't necessarily immaturity for me. But I had a terrible senior year, mainly because I don't know how much time you have to talk about my psychology, but we could be here a while. But you know, I pushed a lot of people away. I didn't want to be there. My graduation was like I would have rather been anywhere else on planet Earth than there. Really for my whole senior year. And I think that was sort of a coping thing of like, this part of my life is over and these people won't be in my life anymore. And I'm just going to say I'm done and I'm over it and I'm ready to move on. I wouldn't say I went necessarily immature, but I certainly reacted differently that year than I did at any other point in high school.
Yeah. Well, just know that, you know, you definitely weren't the only one. According to this article, and it happens to over 50% of high school seniors.
I absolutely believe it. And the number is
rising every year.
Another reason you could not pay me to teach high school would be to deal with that. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Because I knew a lot of people who were pulling a lot of
but
shit.
I can imagine it not being the most fun around this time.
Yeah.
No. Once I mean, it's a great feeling once you're accepted into a school and you get that letter, that notification in the mail. You know, it's a fantastic feeling that at least you're going to go somewhere.
Yep. And
you've been accepted somewhere, and you're not going to be, you know, stomping on the brakes or rather putting the pedal to the metal when you get that high school diploma. What am I going to do now? So you're going to go somewhere, but you know, what that comes with is, you know, I can just coast now. I can just coast, like wear my pajamas to school. I don't give a shit. Like, you know, whatever.
Well,
I have to say, I rather liked my senior year. Um, I didn't have many friends in high school. I would say I had a very small, close knit group of people, and I knew that we would still kind of keep in touch. It wouldn't be the same as the old days, but we would still definitely keep in touch through the years, and I think we've kind of done that, um, more or less. But it is very daunting, like looking around, being like, I'm never going to see any of these people again, like in the same place. Maybe the reunion, maybe, but
yeah. Well, these are a
um,
lot of people you grew up with for more than just high school for a long time, and I think my sophomore and junior year in high school, I kicked so much ass. I was great. I'm just putting that out there. But senior year, I mean, it really, you can definitely mark a change, and I don't talk to anyone from my high school or from I don't even like going back there for the occasional event. That's just part of my life. That's not.
oh sure. I mean, it definitely becomes a place that you outgrow.
Yeah.
That it's like, I don't. I had a purpose here once, but I've been replaced by other students, and other students have replaced those students, and it's just been such a long time.
Well,
Um,
and I think, as we talk about transitioning to college, I think that's one of the big differences, and you were just mentioning this, that high school, at least is supposed to be, and is more so, a structured environment than what college is. And
Very true.
I think that's one of the things that is sort of, in a way, scary about going to college, but also freeing, is that you have some of the same parameters of being educated and tests and homework, but you're adding a whole fourth dimension to it of living on your own, being away from where you've been. You've got to feed yourself and clothe yourself, and now all of a sudden you're not in class for 8 hours, 5 hours, whatever. I don't even know how long kids are in school anymore, but however many hours you're in school a day, it's totally different.
Yeah. That was, for me, I think probably the biggest adjustment was not necessarily, getting up and going to class. I was used to that, and most of us are from our high school days, but it was the other piece of it, the social piece, the surviving on my own piece, that part, because all of a sudden the big wide world seems to just kind of hit you. You have this feeling where it's, I'm in it now. This
Mm-hmm.
is it. Like, and a large part of that comes from the waiting and the anticipation. Since you get to high school, like you never think that the day is going to come. You never, it never, and then all of a sudden it does, and it's an adjustment. It's a big time adjustment. Now, I want to get to that moment. Well, actually, you know what? Let's rewind a little bit. Before that moment of I'm in it, and I'm in my dorm room, mom and dad have left, and it's just me. Let's get to the summer before you go to college.
Okay.
All right. You might know who your roommate is. You might not know. What is Sean Jennings going to? Where is he going? First of all, and what is he buying to prepare for his new dorm room experience?
Yeah, that was a fun summer. I don't really remember. No, of course, it's funny around that time of year. Y'all have your back to school sale, and those little checklists come out with all the things you need for your dorm, and it turns out you don't need most of them. And I don't know why they tell you need every little kind of cubby organizer and every little kind of this, that gimmick thing, and oh, look, if we get this, it collapses into this thing, and then we can get more stuff in your little and it's, no, that doesn't, you don't need that. Yeah, I remember there was a lot of stuff to go and buy, which is funny because those weren't big dorm rooms, so I don't know where I put all of it.
Right. I remember I ended up throwing out so much crap that year, way overbought.
I think those companies, they prey on parents is really what it is, more so than the students, because it's like, you don't want to be the parent who sends your kid to school without
a vacuum sealer for your clothing.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever crazy nonsense Bed Bath & Beyond is shoving down your throat, and and of course the parents say, well, the checklist says you should have it, so better safe than sorry.
Yes,
we're gonna get it for you.
Very much. I think good parents really want their kids to be prepared for everything. And yeah, and like you said, those companies definitely prey on that. And they're like, these parents will literally buy anything if we tell them that their kid needs it. So,
I mean,
speaking of things that your kids need, not only do you have this checklist for your dorm room, but you also have this list of books that you have to buy for your classes.
Textbooks.
And holy crap, how expensive these books are.
It's awful.
Anybody who goes to college will tell you that, go to Amazon. Go to Amazon and get hook up that used book list. Get the same book for, about 75% off. Because, damn, you do not need to spend no $1,600 on a brand new textbook.
Well, and I'll tell you this. I think, for my money, the internet has really revolutionized textbooks, because I can't imagine what it was like of course, the books were also not as expensive, but 20 years ago, you had to order in advance your book from there wasn't multiple, there was only the campus book. You couldn't go to a bookstore and buy these books. So
no.
It was such a monopoly at that point. And nowadays, whether you're renting or you're buying or even digital books, you've got way more options than you used to have. My advice to people going to college or in college, I know we have a big young fan base, I would say we live in a world of digital books and 2-day shipping. Don't buy the books ahead of time. Wait until the class starts and see, because I don't mind buying a book if it's relevant for the class and I'm going to learn something from it. I get it. If I got to spend $50 on a book, but it means I'm going to pass the class, you got to buy the book. What pisses me off is when I go out and buy books and they're never referenced in the class or we're never tested on it. That blows my mind.
Now, I'm sure from our different experiences being different majors,
sure,
our textbooks kind of differed. I mean, I was a history/education major. You were doing your communications degree.
Yeah, we didn't need books. We didn't need books.
I know that we used a fair amount of the books in I would say about 90% of the classes that I took.
Yep.
Especially the history classes. Every history class that I took,
that makes sense.
I can assure you that we definitely used the books. They weren't we didn't have any textbooks. They were more like history books. Mm-hmm. I would say, a couple of times at least, the history book would be written by the professor, and of course, he wants you to buy his book. It's really like the best scheme in the book.
But I appreciate the balls on that. That one, I'll gladly buy the book and I'll ask the professor to sign it, because at that point, then you're like, dude, you got balls. Good for you.
Yeah.
How do I get in on this racket?
I mean, I think at the time maybe I was a little bit miffed, but definitely. So I can see some respect there. Because why the hell wouldn't you? If you're teaching the class and you wrote a book on it and you can make money off of it, by all power to you.
Yep.
But I remember, in addition to the history classes I took, the language classes, we used a decent amount of the workbook. There would always be a workbook and a very expensive textbook to go along with it. Mm-hmm. Aside from that, though, I heard just from my sister being a biochem major and then switching over to accounting, her books were extremely expensive. Especially the biochem ones.
Yep.
Very, very expensive. Because it had to be the newest edition. It had to be the most up to date. But like you said before, I wonder how the digital age is kind of replacing that or remedying that in a way. Because you can't really justify a $600 price tag on a book when it can be digitized and read online, or can you?
I can tell you that because in the last couple years of college, I did try to move to digital textbooks because I'm like, shipping them is a hassle and storing them and carrying them. That was the biggest thing. And my assumption is, like yours, of course they'll be cheaper because they don't have to print them. Wrong. Again, this was many years ago, but they were the exact same price as a used copy of the book would have been, which was kind of frustrating. Now, if they came out and said you buy the book, but for the rest of your life you get the updates when we do a new version, and it's like when you buy an app, you get the app updates and they don't charge you for them, that's one thing. But these books, I don't know. I just think it was I think they're like, what? Wait, we don't have to print them and we can charge the same price? Let's do that. It's terrible.
It's all about necessity, isn't it? I mean, I was going to save this for the end, but you know, college is the same way. We can justify, a extravagant, we're talking almost in the millions price tag. We can justify that because it's something that's necessary, or it's something that's painted by society as being necessary. Mm-hmm. And what better business scheme than that? Then this is essential. Everybody's got to go to college. You can't. What are you talking about? You don't go to college. How are you going to get a job? Like, the other day I was thinking about what was another scheme that's very, very similar. It'll come back to me, but yeah, it really is. It really has gotten to such a crazy point in time with spending and everything that goes into it.
I mean, if we want to pivot into that part of the discussion, I have very legitimate thoughts about the college system in America today. We're getting controversial. We're getting serious here. We're not fooling around.
Very serious here, up for debate.
I think the issue I have with colleges is that on paper, college is a really good idea. To have a place that encourages a broader learning than what you would get in a high school. Both focused and broader, right? And so you're getting just a different version of learning. Combine that with an opportunity for individuals to grow and prosper into functioning adults in an academic setting is a really good idea. The problem is that's not what colleges are. It's not at all. The problem I have is that colleges are businesses. Now, I had the fortunate opportunity, and again, this is a narrow case, but I think it's more common where I got to work on campus the years I was in college. And because of that, I got access to a lot of people and a lot of information about how colleges work on the back end. A lot of people don't think about that. The profit and loss, the revenue, those sorts of things that a student doesn't really think about. And what I learned is that colleges are a business and they have to make money. They say they're nonprofit, but they're really not because they spend the money. You know what I mean? They always have to have, it's like an amusement park. Every year they have to have something new or else people won't come. And it's an arms race. And one of the biggest terms I heard in my years working there was alternate revenue stream. We're not making enough money off the students. How else can we make money? And to me, that was really disappointing because I think that is, when it starts becoming a business, I think that's a real disservice to the students because I'm not saying it can't work as a business, but I'm just saying I think that betrays the fundamental promise of what these institutions are supposed to be. It doesn't bother me that they're expensive necessarily. I wish they were cheaper. I'm glad that community colleges and things like that are trying to take up that mantle. I think that's disappointing. The problem I have is the reason they are expensive is not because it's more, not because all of a sudden college costs more money to run. It's because they're doing all this BS stuff that they don't
try to top other colleges.
Well, and because they want to be able to show their boosters and their donors and alumni, and it's more of a business. The places they sink the money, that was always a problem I had was, the colleges are growing in student numbers, but they're not paying for extra staff to support them. The money is instead going to new buildings, and it's instead going to shiny campuses overseas and to sports facilities and to these areas. And I don't want to be that guy, college sports, they're taking all the money from the learning. Like, I'm not that guy, but it's just such a missed opportunity. Like, every dollar should be going to helping the students and reducing their burden and making it easier and better for them to learn. And that's not how these schools work anymore.
No, it isn't. And I remembered while you were talking, I remembered what my gripe was, what the other industry that very much like college has become, big business, big capital, it's the wedding industry,
Oh yeah.
particularly the venues. Yes, that was what it was. I was having a conversation with my fiance about getting married, and what how extravagant venues charge, like the prices that they charge. And you would think like, oh, we're looking easily like 1,700, or no, 1,700, $17,000, $18,000, for a single night,
Yep.
just for a single night.
Yep.
Just then that's it. Um, and how much that has changed from, our parents' generation, where, yeah, 1,700 and $1,800 would have been a little bit more in terms of the norm. And that really is another industry that is kind of ginormousized, and is now kicking millennials in the ass.
Yep.
Much like college did. So, yeah, I mean, in both cases, I think society presents a need, or they turn an option into a need, so to speak. Like nobody needs to get married in a wedding venue.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody needs to go to a expensive college or university. There are trade schools, there are community colleges, like you mentioned. There's the military. There's a lot of options, but these both wedding venues and colleges present this great need that you have to go here, and if you don't go here, you're going to be a social failure or social outcast in either sense. Like, what do you mean you didn't go to college? What do you mean you didn't get married in a proper wedding venue? Yep. It comes down to what? FOMO, fear of missing out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. And I think part of that, and this is, I think the bigger issue, I want to make clear, I don't have an issue with expensive colleges. I think the Harvards of the world should exist. There should be better colleges, and there should be less nice. There should be a range of colleges. I don't have a problem with that. Same with cars. There should be, Bentleys and Jaguars, and there should also be Honda Civics. I'm fine with that. The problem I have is we've created, and this is also true of weddings, by the way, we've created a debt culture. We've created a culture where you are expected to take on 5 to 6 figures worth of debt to finance the colleges. And what that does is it gives free reign to those schools to say, oh, Sean can't afford to come to our school, but we know he's going to take on the debt to come here, so let's go spend some money. Let's go spend this money. So they're not looking to keep expenses down. When they're building that new library, yeah, we could build it for $100 million, but gosh, if we made it look real pretty on the brochure, it would only cost $200 million. Well, we can just charge it to Sean because he's going to take out the debt anyway. What's another $1,000 or $2,000 or $5,000? And that's the single biggest problem, because if we created an expectation of, and this is the point I hope to get to by the end of the show, if the one piece of advice I would give somebody, and I do give people who are looking at colleges, is the number one thing you should look at a college, full stop, is can you afford it? And it sucks, and it's not fair. I would also like to drive a sports car, okay? I'd love to own a convertible. I can't afford one. You can't go to a college you can't afford.
Can you afford it without accruing a tremendous amount of debt?
A debt you consider reasonable based on the future job you will have. Will you be able to,
Yes.
if you're going to go be a doctor, yeah, okay, you can take on more debt because hypothetically your earning potential is higher. If you're going into communications or public
teaching.
education,
Yeah.
don't go to somewhere that but they don't educate young people. They don't educate high school students about this. And the colleges prefer it that way because the colleges, they're not the ones putting out the loan, so they don't give a shit if you default on them.
Mm-hmm. It's very true. These are things that definitely, kids are taking all kinds of electives these days. This would be a real good elective.
Yeah.
Sean Jennings presents Living a Debt-Free Existence.
Don't be like me, kids. Wouldn't you like disposable income? Because you won't have any. No, it really is just such a you're right. It's an expectations game, and it just comes down to kids are automatically. When did a state school become a safety school? When did community college stop being an option? When did trade schools stop becoming an option? Absolutely.
Very true. I can't tell you the amount of people that I know that never saw college as a realistic option, never took their schooling seriously, figured that somehow something would go for them, and they'd end up at the end of high school with some kind of job. And then they go on into college, just kind of drifting into like, well, this is what society says I should do, and then just failing tremendously their first year because they were never prepared for it, and it was never something that they were going to, and that same kid, that same student, I think would be much more successful. I mean, no question about it. If they had just gone to a trade school, if they had just gone to a community college and kind of gotten their life figured out before they took that giant leap.
I compare these colleges to credit card companies in a way, where their job is to recruit you as a customer and to take your money and to have you leaving satisfied, right? It's not about what you learn necessarily. It's not about you growing as a person. It's about you not being pissed off when you leave at the end. Because then
right.
You'll complain.
If you're pissed off, you're going to tell other people about it.
That's right. And so it is a business, and
Bad
it's not.
Business.
It sucks, and I and I don't want to say this is true of every college. I don't think it's fair to make it a blaming statement, but I do think it's true of a lot of them. Their priority is not student education. It's not growing people. It's not making sure their students are successful at the end of the day. It's about making their balance sheet successful at the end of the day. And I know I sound very cynical. I feel very cynical about it, but I do think that it's a real fundamental problem. That's why colleges on paper are a very good idea. But in 2018, we've created a system that is extremely detrimental to students. And by the way, I tell people this and they don't believe me. People are wondering what's going to be the next crash of our economy. What's going to be the next big hit on our economy? Wait till millennials become 35 or 40 and they can't afford to buy a home and they can't afford to buy a car and they're renting for the rest of their lives. Do you know what? And they have no discretionary spending because of student debt. What do you think that's going to do to an economy that, no joke, is fundamentally based on consumer spending? Our economy, there's nothing with our economy except consumer spending. If consumer spending goes down, that's what happened in 2008. It kills us.
Yeah.
And so what happens when you have an entire generation who is no longer not only buying small things, but buying big things like houses and cars?
Yeah, no longer buying anything except ramen.
Well, that's right. We're moving to a rental economy, and that does not work. And that's a big problem.
Yeah. Any ideas for a potential solution for?
That's a great question.
For this situation.
Well, gosh, it's hard to fix an entire system when it's reached a point like this. I think you need to start with the students. Look, I'm a big believer in the market tells you what's right and wrong. If your consumers hate your product and they stop buying it, guess what? You change it. That's what helped us move a lot of products towards green and environmentally friendly products. It's because the market spoke and they wanted to buy them. It's not because these companies were suddenly altruistic and wanted to help the globe, And so I think if we do a better job of educating young people before college of their options, and all of a sudden we have higher enrollments at community college and vocational colleges and quote unquote cheaper colleges, I think the market will eventually speak. When the problem is the quote unquote expensive colleges are seeing enrollment double every year, So what is stopping them from changing? They're not going to do it on their own. So the market has to speak. And I think that's true. It begins before college. Once you've made the decision, the problem is colleges make it very difficult to transfer. Once you've made that decision, you're locked in. You're not going anywhere. So you've got to do it before they ever even make that decision. I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I think just going off what you were saying, I think that it's got to come with, just like any good, like any product or service, there's got to be some kind of competition that will, make it lower its prices. You take any items that are any goods that are available for purchase. If one good is cheaper than the other and, accomplishes a comparative goal, you're going to buy the cheaper option. So I think it's got to come from more trade schools. It's got to come from more rote skills that we're severely losing. I mean, in this country, you mean like you talk about a glut of skilled workers. Well, our skilled workers are, skilled in things like, public relations and outward management, and very, very much like hypothetical or cerebral things. But, if we started getting more, skilled in something like computer programming or machine programming or engineering or building or something like that, the medical fields, things like that, I think that could maybe do it. I think also the opportunity really is online. It's the internet. It's the
Yep.
the things that I know Harvard put out a couple years back, put out a free, basically you can obtain, I wouldn't say a Harvard education, but you could certainly take free classes for like the Harvard level, difficulty, online. There's a great website called edX, EEDX, that also does the same thing. You take college classes online there for a lot cheaper. Now, right now, those are definitely not, valid options to replace a college education, but I think the future is definitely will come online. It will come from learning at your own pace. Once institutions gain a like more of a credibility and more of a kind of assert themselves online, then I think they can really give colleges a run for their money. And that, unfortunately, that's going to come with a lot of funding that those online places will need. But the base from it really has to come from kind of a content created by regular people that don't have much of an investment in like grounded institutions.
Well, yeah. Look, colleges are going to have expenses. I mean, you can't. College is going to cost money. I mean, it's buildings filled with people that have to be paid. I mean, I get that. But you look at something like a $50 application fee to apply to a college. To me, that's bonkers, because you're immediately. How does a family that wants to send 3 or 4 applications, how are they supposed to afford that? To me, it's things like that where there's no need. I can't imagine how it costs a college $50 to process an application, considering it's all online now. It's crazy to me. So
how much ink in their stamp do you think? How much does that cost?
I mean, even if it takes, I understand you have to pay people. What does it take you an hour? Even if it takes an hour to look through the application, that's $50 an hour. Just the math is bonkers. It's
ludicrous.
So
ludicrous. Yeah.
You gotta put the students first and not the balance sheet. But Matt, you did get me thinking there in something you said, which was, I want to talk a little bit about the sort of educational side of colleges, and I think online is a really interesting idea. For my money, from my college experience, I think colleges do need to really think hard about how they educate their students in 2018. I'm baffled that we still have lecture classes. I truly am. In considering the generations that are now in colleges and the way they've been brought up and the way they've been taught to learn, I hated lecture classes so much. I'm like borderline ADD. I could not pay attention. They were very uninteresting. They were very slow. And it wasn't until I got into my later college years, when you move towards a more project-based class, a hands-on interactive type class, an assignments, do something, bring it in, and we talk about it, that's how you learn type class. For me, I think colleges have a great opportunity to innovate, because they're not as burdened like your K through 12s are by the state. They have more of an opportunity to try new things, to teach their students outside of the traditional lecture environment. And I'd like to see them do that more.
I think you're spot on. Yeah. And being a history major, I can't tell you how many lecture. They were all lecture
I
classes.
can't
really.
even
That's
imagine.
the best answer. Every single one of them.
Oh
Some
my
were better
God.
than others, but very true. And that's the direction that all education is going towards. I can tell you from being a high school educator that that is very much. As a matter of fact, next week, next Wednesday, we're going to meet as a county. We're taking a administrative day, and we're meeting as a county to discuss the future of assessment and how it's moving, just like you said, it's moving toward a project-based environment. 100% is. No longer will the classroom be, a bunch of desks and chairs all in rows, as a teacher just drones on for
Yep.
90 minutes at a stint while the students take notes. It's very much going to be a trial and error, kind of play as you go, figuring things out on your own, from the text, from the internet, which has become such an asset now, and collaborative. It's all collaborative. It's all moving towards, like, what can you accomplish as a team? How can you grow as a team? Like, because that's the way that the working world is now. That's the way that the professional world is now. It's all collaborative. So that's how the future generations are going to need to adapt to, and need to, interpersonal skills are just as important as any skill you can learn. And that's really at the forefront of all education today. But like you said, you brought up a great point. Universities can certainly be innovators in this category because they're not beholden to the same standards as public schools are.
Yep.
The curriculum is much more lax and much more mobile.
Well, and in college too, and I think you nailed it. Lecture learning in no way reflects the real life once you leave college. Like, it's so different. And I always tell people, I learned more in my years of employment at college than I did in the classroom at college. I learned how to function in a business office. I learned how to work every day with people. I learned how to accomplish tasks and organize things. And to me, that's not that learning history isn't important or learning biology isn't important, but those are skills you use every single day,
Oh, yeah.
And for me, that was such a takeaway. And then, like I said, because I was in communications and in sort of a creative side of it, being able to work on teams and do projects and accomplish things with people who you don't know, you've never met before, there's just so much skill learning that I think is more important than fact learning. Fact learning is easy in
Yes.
2018. We got the goddamn internet. We got Wikipedia.
100%. Again, I think you hit the nail right on the head. The reforms that are coming through with education now, I can speak especially from the social studies aspect of it is, just to throw out an example, who the hell needs to know who the seventh emperor of Rome was? Who the hell needs to know what the Magna Carta established for the Britons,
or that John Goodman won an Emmy for his role on Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip.
Well, that could possibly win you at Jeopardy. You can get some pub trivia mileage out of that one.
True.
But for those other ones, you don't need to know that. What you need to be able to do, though, is you need to be able to work as a group, and you need to be able to do things like interpret a document. Everybody gets a contract at their job. You need to know how to read it.
Yep.
You need to know how, what it says. You need to know how it's going to benefit you or how it's going to screw you over in the end. That's something that kids can easily learn in a social studies class. You need to know things like reading an article for bias. Is what this author is saying, is it inherently biased? Is it true? First of all, how can we fact check it? That process comes from the social studies. So it's the skill set has changed definitely for the better. And the lecture part of it, none of what all those skills have in common is that none of them come from listening to somebody stand up and lecture for 90 minutes.
Yep.
They all come from doing, like you said, working at a job, learning in the field, I did the same thing when I was doing student teaching. Kind of wish that I had a year of student teaching instead of a semester. Think that I learned way more in that one semester than
Yep.
I ever did in any of my classes prior to that. And it would be great to see, it would really be great to see college move in that direction, that hands-on
Well,
field experience mode.
you know what I've told every boss I've ever had is, look, I'm young, I'm going to make mistakes, but I promise I'm never going to make it twice, because that's what this is all about. It's about making mistakes and it's about learning. And if you don't do it, you're never going to learn to, because a textbook is part of the answer, but it's not the full answer. But this does, and we're not going to have time to get into it too much tonight, but you know, the idea of a college internship, I think, is both great and horribly abused in modern day, because there are not enough internships to go around, and yet colleges more or less, and certainly employers after college, expect you to have done it, which is creating a vacuum where employers do not have to pay their interns, which I think is grossly unfair and is absolutely terrible. And I'm very much against that. It creates an environment where interns are not, it's not like the apprenticeship it should be. It's more as, oh, we'll just get somebody in the office to crunch numbers for us all summer because we don't have to pay them, rather than actually teaching them the skills that they need. I'm very thankful for the internship I had, and it's led to my entire career, because they gave me a shot to do something important, to work with real people, and to actually learn something. And that parlayed into all my job and my entire career I've had since. And I just think it's so frustrating to me that when I hear students say, I have to travel 2 hours one way to an internship I hate, and they don't even pay me, and I don't do anything there, but I need it for my resume, to me, that just drives me crazy. That drives me crazy, because that is such an abuse of the system. But anyway, in case you can tell, I have strong feelings on this. But that
Really?
I despise that, because that's gross.
It's become almost like a new, and definitely don't want to throw this term around, but like a new indentured servitude, like
No,
a
you're
new,
absolutely right.
is kind of what it's become. It's like, you work for free for so many years, and those years are growing, by the way, like they're not shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
How long a company can, abuse their interns.
Yep.
And it gets to the point where, once they've kind of drained the existence out of you and gotten more interns are getting burned out now when they're first starting on the job than ever before. Starting at minimal wages, and mostly it's the hours. I think it's mostly the hours that they ask these interns to work, and just kind of burning them out at the beginning, and then squeezing all that they can out of them, and then just kind of like tossing them aside when they can't work anymore. I would want colleges to look more at that, and because it really should be a learning experience. It shouldn't be, let me work all I can and pay my dues and then work like for free.
Yep.
Just so I can not get a job later on. I'm sure that's the story of many a communications major.
Too many. Now, Matt, I think we'd be remiss if we ended this episode and didn't talk about the fun side of college, because I think we've talked about the bummer side of college long enough.
Yeah, man.
But college isn't just about
bummer.
learning. It's about you developing as a person through things like all-you-can-eat dining halls, late-night parties, just generally hanging out. What was your favorite fun side of college?
Just that college was a 4-year play date. Like when you're a kid and, you ask your mom or dad if you could have a friend over, then imagine that friend comes over, you say, hey, mom or dad, can that friend stay for dinner? You're sure, okay. Hey, mom or dad, can that friend like spend the night, a sleepover? Okay, yeah, sure, that's fine. Hey, what if they spend the weekend? What if they spend the next 4 years of your life? Like, that's pretty much what college is. It's, if you make the right friends and you form a real good relationship, it really does become a 4-year continuous play date. Like, and that to me is the part of college that I will always cherish and have a fond place for, my memory. So, what about you?
Yeah, I obviously, I think I agree. And it's just the idea that there's something, and I don't remember how you felt on move-in day, on your first day of college. I was fucking terrified because this is the first time not only are all these people strangers who have never met, but you spend 24 hours a day around them. I mean, this is where you live, and it's not like, right now in my life, I spend a lot of time with my coworkers, but I really only spend, 8 hours a day with them, and then I go home.
Then you come home
and
you have your own world. Yeah,
it's separate, right? But this, it's like you are constantly surrounded by it, not just by roommates, but even just by people in the buildings. You're seeing the same people, whether it's the staff of the college or the professors of the college. You're seeing the same people 24 hours a day, every single day for years. And that's such a new experience because you're essentially in a whole nother world. Everything about your life is different the day you step foot on that college campus. And if you make the most of it, and I fully acknowledge it doesn't work out for everyone, and I think that's a shame. But if you do make the most of it, and under the right circumstances, there is a lot of both fun and growth opportunity to be had, which is great. Which is why I think colleges are extremely important.
Yeah, that's the side I definitely don't regret. It really is a unique experience. And I think it does make you a better person because it really, like you said, it really takes you out of your comfort zone. And if you find out what you're made of, you find out, how you really deal with social settings versus how, maybe you thought you would. And I know that for many people, it comes as a surprise, like, what they're capable of or what they're not so great at doing, what they're not so capable of doing. It really does prepare you for life. I can't say that it doesn't. The educational part of it, how relatable that is, how much of that carries into the work world. I can't speak for that for everyone. And of course, there are definitely things that can be changed. But how it develops you as a person, as a human being, I think it's very beneficial. Very beneficial. For the most part.
It develops you, right? And I'm not going to say it makes you a better person because I don't think that's fair.
It just makes
if you were a dick going into college and you hung out with dicks in college, you're probably going to be a dick after college. Like that's, but
that's the thing is it really does expose you to different people, and different walks of life. A lot of people might be very closed-minded going into college, and all of a sudden you're hanging out with somebody, and look at that, his boyfriend came over. Like, okay, and he's this person that I may, going in, not saying me personally, but, somebody may go in with a certain, feeling towards people that are different from them. And, all of a sudden they're exposed to different sexualities, different genders, different gender norms, different races, different ethnicities. And it's like, oh, shoot, like everything that all the stereotypes, all the ethnotypes that I had in my head are all, just that. They're just creations that I had in my head that are not necessarily true.
Yeah.
It really does broaden your experience. It broadens your horizon, and I think it makes you more well-rounded for sure.
It should. And it's a shame because
it doesn't do it for everyone.
You see
but
these right-wing nut jobs on some of these college campuses, and I think that's a whole nother discussion. I think that's a shame. But you're right. I think in a perfect world, that's exactly what it's supposed to do, especially for people who haven't been exposed to that. I think college is a great opportunity to do that. But then again, and I really don't want to backtrack, but when you start talking things like financial limitations, and colleges, I think, in my opinion, are becoming less diverse because there are certain groups of people who simply cannot afford to go to colleges, and certain people who can afford are of certain types. You know what I mean? So it's a shame that finances. There was a great 60-minute story I watched the other day on how colleges are becoming a lot more diverse racially, but they are not becoming more economically diverse in terms of especially the sort of Ivy Leagues, where they have done a legitimate, Harvard this year, the majority of their students coming in are Asian American.
Yep.
They're doing a much better job racially, but in terms of the amount of students considered low income going into Harvard has stayed flat over the last decade. So
I think they recently started doing some kind of quota, if I'm not mistaken, to try to get more. And again, like they say, middle income, but again, like the way that they're wording middle income could just be like middle high income or
Sure.
low high, and it is very true. And they don't. A lot of colleges will not show you how the other half lives. Like it's not going to be economically or class integrated, but hopefully, we can make a start with the race, religion, sexual orientation.
You do what you
part.
can. You do what you can.
Sure. Hmm.
Now, I will say one fun thing about college is the dining hall.
Whoa.
All
yeah.
you can eat, buddy. Dive in. And boy, did we.
Yeah. Boy, did we indeed.
I sit here today, I cannot believe how I ate.
Oh, no. I can't believe how you ate, but you kept the same figure.
Oh,
That's
no,
the secret I never figured out.
I still have not. I just now have lost the weight from college.
Yeah.
Actually, to be honest, you know where I really gained the weight was sophomore year when we started eating out at restaurants.
Ooh, yes.
That was a big mistake. And fast food.
Yep.
And because at least
like
in
the
college dining hall, I wouldn't say was healthy, but at least it was like, because there was so much food, I didn't feel like I had to eat all of it. Like I would just kind of eat a little bit, and it was the same stuff all the time. But then it's like every night, it's like, oh, we're going to Applebee's, and it's like, oh God, no.
Yeah, that stuff is terrible. Yeah, I think you're right on that. I think that was a mistake. If I could go back and change something, it would probably be that. Maybe we could have made some salads every now and then. Salad night.
Yeah.
But yeah, the unlimited food, that's it's really, it's not what you think. I think that a lot of people go in and they're like, oh, I'm going to have like 3 cheeseburgers and 2 slices of pizza. But no, it really just gives you a variety. It's like, oh, I don't feel like having pizza, so I'm going to have, 1 burger or something like that. I think that it's all about self-control, really, is what it comes down to in the end. But I agree with you. I think that the ones going off the meal plan and into the nearby restaurants, that was not the best decision. I think.
No, that's a harder transition than going from your old home to all you can eat. I think.
Because at least with the freshman year with that meal plan, you had a place that you would go, and it wasn't like, oh, well, it's so late, the only place that's open right now is Chili's, or
yeah, we sure did that a lot.
Late night pizza. They say the freshman 15 is comes from the booze you drink, but I think it's more to do with the meals and aka the lack of nutrition.
But by the way, I think college dining halls have a wonderful opportunity, because I have had the pleasure of going to a couple of quote-unquote award-winning dining halls outside of the college we attended, and I think that's a great opportunity to introduce students to healthier eating, to more diverse foods from around the world, to things they may not have tried. I think our particular dining hall served fine food, certainly edible food, but it was pizza and cheeseburgers and pasta and meatloaf and things you've had before. And I've been to some where there are stations that are just dedicated for different parts of the world, and there's always, there's an emphasis, and I think colleges are hopefully moving in this direction where it's, maybe the college spends a little bit more money, or at least is smarter about how they spend it, but instead are focusing on better foods and a better way to educate students about food, because again, college is about preparing you for life. It's not necessarily in the classroom. It's in a lot of other places. One of those is in how you eat.
Very true. Very true. Very true. Can't wait to get a tandoori station up in Marist for our reunion. See if we could go up there and.
Hey, they got a sushi station. That's a pretty big upgrade. Take what you can get.
That's a start. Yeah. You think the Brazilian flatbread counts as a cultural experience? I don't know.
It is an experience. That is true.
Yeah.
Oh
gosh.
Let's see. Is there anything else we haven't covered about? We haven't really talked about partying.
No, we haven't. We haven't talked about partying. We also haven't talked about how to pick the right college, the right fit. I mean, I guess you talked about that a little bit, but like college tours, we didn't talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's dive into that. Were you a
It's
fan of
always a
college
fun one.
tours?
College tour. All right. So, how many colleges, approximately how many colleges did you visit on in your journey?
I would say I officially toured 5 colleges.
Same over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I also toured
I
5.
think I think if you're touring more than 5, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice because then I think that's overkill.
A little bit. Yeah. I would say no more than 6.
Yeah.
Like 6 or 7.
If
could
you
be
hit
like the
double
limit.
digits, you've gone too far.
Oh, sure. I totally agree.
And people
The
do.
double
I knew
digits is where, yeah.
I knew people who applied to 15 schools. I said you're absolutely
No.
insane. That doesn't make any sense.
Then you're paying that application fee every time. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, that then it really becomes a little crazy. It's like you stretch yourself a little thin on that one. You got to keep it a nice limited number.
Yep.
No more than 6 or 7. But now, when you went on your college tours, like, do you remember the questions that people asked their tour guides?
Sure. Well, and I'm a little biased, Matt, as you know. College tour room. I got the opportunity to be paid to have my room be a tour room on the tour. Tour groups would come through, and so I got to hear some of their questions while I was in college and then also on the tour. And yeah, no, I mean, it was always the same questions at every, oh, what's the nightlife like? Oh, does everyone go home on the weekend? Oh, what's the food in the cafeteria like? Oh, is there air conditioners in the dorms? Oh, it's kind of the same questions. I don't, you've been on one tour, you've been on them all.
Yeah. Do you remember any particularly funny or ridiculous questions?
Well, I was going to ask you
Language.
if any of the colleges you toured were like really bad, because I toured a college, and maybe I'll be nice and I won't say the name, but it was in so it was recommended to me by somebody. This was when I was going into school for broadcast journalism, which I ended up not doing. But this school was known. That was like their big thing, broadcast journal. That's all they really did. And I'm like, okay, it's interesting. It was at the Vermont border with Canada, way up there in the middle of goddamn nowhere. And I didn't, until I got there, big mistake on me for not doing my research, I did not find out they only had 400 students in the entire college. And it was up on a mountain, and this school looked like it was built in the 60s and had never been touched. It was so ghetto. The dorms were like just gray cinder blocks for walls. Like, not even like the kind of like dorm cinder blocks. Like, this was like really ghetto. And they're like, oh yeah, when it snows, the campus is like so dead. There's like never anyone here because it snows like all year round because it's basically in Canada. And they're like,
So
oh
did you
yeah,
brew some bathtub gin and pass out?
like literally,
What did
the
you
college
do?
had like 4 buildings. Like, and
Mhm.
they're like, oh yeah, no one actually lives here. That's crazy. No, this college is just for the couple cities around here. And I'm like, why the fuck did I come here? This place is nuts. And the funny thing is, that's the only college they offered me a full ride scholarship to go there.
Of course they did.
Full
No,
ride.
you discovered
100%.
that we exist. Please come to our
And I was
school.
like, it's not even worth it. It's not even worth it at that point. And I don't regret that at all. I don't know, Matt.
Yeah.
Did you see anywhere particularly interesting?
I never had an experience like that. I just remember, I don't know. I get this sense a lot that this happens more often than you might think, that people will go to a college and just not really feel right about it, just not get a good feeling right. As soon as they step out of the car, just like, no, this isn't for me. Or like, after the tour being like, this doesn't sit well with me. And I remember most of the schools I went to were kind of like that. I didn't outright hate it, but I was like, I just get some kind of feeling, some kind of sense that I'm not going to be happy here, or this isn't the right fit. Until our college came along and I took the tour of Marist, and I was like, all right, actually, I really like it here. I can really see myself living here day to day. One school I went to, I'll say the name because I'm not going to shit on it, but SUNY Stony Brook on Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it a lot, and I really did feel like I could see myself there. But then we left the tour, and started driving back home, and we ended up sitting in, I'm not joking, almost 3.5 hours of traffic because Long Island.
Yeah.
And that's what Long Island is like at certain times of the day.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, every time this is back when I was in high school, and I thought I was going to go home a lot. It ended up not being the case at all.
Yep.
And that's another thing that they don't tell you about college, is that like it really becomes your home. And even if you do live, like my parents only lived like a little over an hour away from Marist, but I barely went to go visit them ever. I think I went home like once through like probably once, aside from like breaks and stuff like that, probably once, like just to drive home and see how things were. And it was like my freshman year. But yeah, back then I was like, 3.5 hours of traffic on the way back. I can't do this. Like, not for me at all. But the tours really do give you, I think they do give you a good sense of like when you walk around the campus, it's like you should be asking like questions like, do people just disappear over the weekend? Because I was told that in a college tour.
Yep.
Most of the people here don't stay here. They go home for the weekend.
Yep.
Definitely turned me off from applying there or considering that as an option. So I think that should be a big question is, what do the weekends look like here? What's available outside of classes? What is available to me? What kind of student activities are available? And you start there, and then you kind of get a sense that way. Another kind of shitty way is a lot of I went to a sleepover. I went to like one of the like campus sleepover where they had a session for the parents and then a session for the students, and the session for the students they buddy you up with somebody who goes to that school, and then you sleep over, and then all of a sudden like that night it's that's that really,
it's very weird,
almost like it's a weird environment. It's almost like a switch goes on and they're like, ooh, this is what we really do at night. I was like, I don't know. That was a big turn off for me. It was like it wasn't authentic. Didn't feel authentic at all. Felt manufactured. Like this is what college is like in movies. So this is what it's like here. I felt the whole time like I was at like a really bad timeshare presentation that was being put on by the students and by the faculty together, like both like a long con. And I was like, I didn't feel good about that either. So I think the way to go is with a very authentic experience. This is what we're about. This is what you get. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because those they're designed to be sanitized. I mean, obviously they're not going to point out all the stuff that sucks about going to that school. So, what I usually tell people to ask both the tour guide and either before or after the tour, grab a random student walking around and ask them, what's the worst thing about this school? And hold their feet to the fire and make them answer. And if they give you a BS answer, it's too much fun. No, you really force me to say, look, I'm going to make you say something negative about this school. Okay, I know it's not perfect. I know that there's a downside. So when you think of the biggest, what's the worst thing you can think of about this school? It's perfectly fine, because if the worst thing you can think of isn't that bad, then maybe I'll go here.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work, but sometimes it does, especially if you grab a random student. Don't be afraid to, I learned this the hard way, don't be afraid to ask a random student on the campus their thoughts. Because a lot of them are going to be fans of the school and are probably going to want to say nice things if they're friendly. But you will get some honest, and you say, look, I'm serious, just be honest. I'm really interested in going here, and you go here, and what did you wish you knew when you were going on the tour about this place? And if they say, look, it's not a perfect school, it's got a couple issues, but overall I really like it here, then hey, you learned something valuable.
Yeah, I really like that approach. I think that's something that our listeners can take away.
But you got to be bold enough to do it. That's the only thing is you got to be aggressive, because I'm telling you, they will want to really paint you a rosy picture. So you gotta be almost a dick about it. Which isn't always fun.
Like that. Oh, I think that's a good approach, and you get a real honest answer there. It made me think of that quintessential interviewer question. What's your worst quality, or what's your worst attribute? And and the interviewee will say something like, oh, well, I care too much, or I'm too attentive to details, or I'm a real I'm so much of a workhorse that, I'll work myself into the ground, or some real clear BS that is just not true, but will hopefully land you the job. Um,
I would
but
also I would also tell people too that the one other tip that I really like to give people is talk to somebody in your major. That's a big one because a lot of colleges are great overall, but like the communications program is awesome, but the science program sucks. Like, don't be afraid if your tour guide is an art major and you're not. Don't be afraid to be like talk to the college and be like, I want to talk to somebody, or just walk into the building and talk to somebody in your respective field, because it really, those are the, obviously like the food and the living and the culture and that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's the same for everybody, but you're gonna be spending a lot of your time with the people in your program, especially in your later years when you can't transfer or do anything about it. So really take the time to learn if that program is legit and the people who work there are nice, because that is going to have a bigger impact on your quality of life. Because you can always
very
make different
true.
friends. Every college is going to have good people and bad people living there. You can make different friends. You can find something to eat in the dining hall. But when it comes to your program, if those people suck, you're trapped.
I like that one too. I want to add one thing onto that. How do you feel about this? Take a stroll after the tour is over. Take a stroll to the restroom, okay, in one of the schools, like one of the
Uh-huh.
like class schools. But on your way there, maybe walk slower, saunter over there, and on your way, listen to classes being taught if
Yeah.
you're going while school's in session. Listen to how the professor is presenting it. This is what I'm going to be doing for the next 4 years. Is it hands-on, real, like hands-on stuff? Or if I'm a science major, are they actually like operating on cadavers and doing science experiments, or is it all lecture based? Is how good is their lab really? Like, they'll tell you that they have every college you go to will have a state of the art lab that they just got a big grant and just bought all this new equipment for, top of the line equipment. But are they actually using that equipment? Are they actually teaching you like more about that equipment, how to be comfortable with it, how to use it in a workplace setting? Check that stuff out as well.
Yeah, I mean, and again, these suggestions are like take effort and boldness to do, but it's 4 years of your life and $100,000 of your money. So put in the time to learn this shit, guys. It's important. But what I would say is, if you have the time and are willing to take a step further, call the dean of that school or a director in that school and say, I want to come audit a class. I want to come sit in on a class. You find me. I
Go for it.
guarantee anyone worth, and if they say like an aggressive no, that tells you something about that school, because I bet you
Right.
most of them are going to say, look, I'm not trying to rip you guys off for a free class or anything, but like, I'm really interested in your college and I just want to come in one day, one class, and just sit in and see what it's like. Don't call the admissions office, by the way, would be my advice if you want to do that, because they're either going to say they're too busy or they're going to set you up with something that may not be authentic. Call that part of the school directly and just say, hey,
Right.
director for communications, I'm really interested in, I really want to be a web designer. So can I sit in on one of your upper level web design classes and see what they do, see what the professors are like and the classes are like? I think that's a great opportunity. I mean, you got to do your research. That's the biggest thing, is just going on the regular vanilla tour. Frankly, you learn the basics. You don't learn that much.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said before, every tour, no tour guide is going to be like, yeah, the school actually kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It's the tourist is there to sell the school. They
Well,
handpick those guides to sell the school.
that
There's a reason they visited Colby and Sean's room,
well, it's
and they
hard.
didn't
It was
visit
hard. It
they
really
didn't
was,
visit Matt and Billy and Alex's room.
because
You
they would
know,
ask us
they handpick those
questions,
places. You know.
and we'd have to kind of be honest. I mean, they'd ask us. Of course, they always ask the stupid questions like, how's the food here? And are the classes hard? And you're like, the food's fine and the classes are fine. It's like you didn't have to lie too much, but occasionally you would get some
Yeah.
pointed questions and you'd have to kind of fudge it. And so that's why you really gotta peek. It's the same if you're buying a car or a house or any other big purchase. You gotta really do the legwork,
Mm.
as they say.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, we're at an hour 15, so we're definitely we've really
Class
cruised
is
through
out
our
of
time.
session now.
Yeah, I was about to
Yeah.
say we're in overtime now. Is there any last points you'd like to make on any final thoughts?
Like anything else in life, college is definitely what you make of it. There's only one person who's going to dictate whether you have a great experience or not, and that's you. It really is you. It's the mindset, it's the attitude, it's how you approach people. Like you said before, you're going to school with, thousands of other individuals, maybe even tens of thousands of individuals that are around your age that are, you're bound to find somebody who is into the same stuff as you. And if you have trouble at first, which you might, it doesn't click for everybody, especially if you're going to a bigger university. My advice is to seek out. There's tons, and if any college worth its salt has tons or dozens of clubs and programs and activities that are specifically there to bind people of like minds together. And if you truly are lonely or unhappy, like I recommend changing your setting and really like kind of finding new people to mesh with. That's what college is all about. It's about making relationships and growing as a person, as yourself. So don't be afraid to, if you don't have to be best friends with your roommate. Matter of fact, they encourage you, I think, to kind of not be, so you can branch out and grow as a person. I think it definitely would benefit you to do that, because you could have some real shitty experiences with newer people, and that'll only help you grow in the end too. So, but the true friends are the ones that stick with you even after college is gone. And Sean Jennings, I'm real happy that you were one of those true friends.
Aww.
So it really is. College is really, and I know we spent half the episode bitching about the negatives and the cost and all this, but it really is an experience that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. So,
well, there are a lot of experiences in life that are broken. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do them, and college is one of them. Sadly, we can't change the world with a snap of our fingers, but we can only try to improve it.
Right, we're not Thanos.
No, spoiler alert. Still have not seen that. But I would, Matt, I would say when it comes to looking for colleges, my two key pieces of advice: make sure you can afford it. And how did you feel when you were there? I toured 5 colleges, and only one of them I left that day feeling like, wow, there was something special about this place. And everyone I know who I've talked to has had the same. There was always that one place that you can't put your finger on it, but there's something about it that felt good. Go to that place, assuming all things are equal between your options.
Sure.
And Matt, I wholeheartedly agree with you. It sounds so cheesy. I feel nauseous even saying it, but college is what you make of it. And if your only thing is going to class and sitting around, you're not doing the college experience, and you're going to miss out. And there are things I wish I had done in my earlier years at college, so I could have done it all 4 years instead of in the last year or two. I mean, if you want to be a TV star, your college spent $1 million building a state-of-the-art TV studio. Go fucking use it. Like, that's like, seriously, this is shit you're not going to be able to do. I did the radio program for the last year I was there. I wish I'd been doing it all 4 years, because now it's like, that could have been so cool. This is kind of what I do now. So you have to really play, have fun, try things you hadn't done before. And if it fails, who cares? No one cares, because no one's watching what you're doing. No one gives a shit.
Yeah. Going back to like the play date idea, like college is really one big sandbox, And screw around.
You want to try partying? Try partying.
Try it out.
Maybe you'll love it. Maybe you'll hate it.
You might love it. You might hate it. But at least you tried it.
Friends.
And you don't have any regrets.
Try friends. Some you're not going to like. There are some people that I was friends with in college I don't talk to anymore for specific reasons, because I don't like them. But there are also people like you, Matt, who it's like it ended up working out well. That's the best part, because there's so many people around. Just relax, enjoy. College is a wonderful experience. You're not going to do everything right, but you're going to do a lot of things right. And that's what's exciting about it. And I think it's such a critical part of the human experience in this modern age. And while it needs some work in some areas, I think we can agree, both of us, that it is something special, certainly.
Indeed.
Well, Matt, I think I just heard the bell.
Yep. Class is dismissed.
Class is out of session.
No homework tonight. That's good.
Your homework come back next week and join us for another episode of Up for Debate, where we will be talking who knows what, but it'll be another exciting topic. Of course, you can go to our website, upfordebate.tv, and get all our episodes, including the past ones. Last week we did a great episode on collecting, and next week we'll have another one, so it'll be fun. You can also get our episodes wherever you get podcasts, Overcast, iTunes, really anywhere we stream it, and the video version on YouTube, of course. And you can follow us at Up for Debate TV on Twitter, and email us, upfordebatetv@gmail.com. I'll remind everybody we're in the middle of our summer movie league. You can follow along all summer long at upfordebate.tv/movies. That updates weekly, both there and on our Twitter account. So keep an eye on that. And I'll also just quickly tease that you can check me out every week over on Up for Debate at upfordebate. Every week at